Hello, welcome to Swiss Watch Camp. Today we are in my favorite Asian city of Singapore, visiting my good friend, watch expert and founder of Singapore Watch Club, Tom. Thank you for having us in your home, bro.
Thanks for coming.
And nice to see you. So today we're gonna go through your collection and just peel the peel of, let's say, what inspires you to collect watches and what do you like, and where would you like to start?
Let's start with this tray over here. I think this is, I mainly collect vintage Audemars, and it's the genre that speaks to me the most. And so let's start with, say, this one. So this one over here is what I call the savior. So it's the watch that saved Audemars Piguet, because this ties back into the history of quartz crisis, which I am extremely fascinated about. So as you know, in the 70s, the watch industry was heavily devastated by the introduction of Japanese quartz movement. There were low-cost watches. Back then, people bought watches because they needed to tell the time. It was nothing artistic. It wasn't anything that was, there was no real fascination behind the artistry of watches. So people mainly bought watches just because they needed to tell the time. So when the Japanese came up with a low-cost variant of time-telling devices, which is the quartz watch, it tanked the Swiss watch industry. And at that point in time, I think 70% of the employees in the watch industry went out of business. Brands were closing down left, right, and center, and everyone expected basically a quartz future. But that also drove the industry to change. And interestingly, during this period of time, at the peak of the quartz crisis, AP decided to put out an automatic perpetual calendar, ultra thin, the record-breaking piece at that point in time. So the movement was less than 4 millimeters thick, and what you get is a very balanced, a very legible and attractive, high complication piece. So when they put out this piece in 1978, no one else was doing it. Everyone was focusing on how to reduce costs, focusing on how to mass-produce quartz watches, developing quartz watches, and this gave Audemars a very strong edge because they were playing in a field where there were no competitors. So thankfully, this was a huge commercial success, and they sold, I think they must have sold over 6,000 pieces of these. At the peak of production, they were producing close to 700 a year of these automatic perpetual calendars. And I think it really just cemented AP's future in the next chapter of watchmaking, which is now, you know, the artisanal side of it, the newfound appreciation, this renaissance for mechanical watchmaking.
No, these are beautiful. Like I've seen them on your channel many times. You have a few different variants here as well, which we can see on the table.
So this one over here, this is what they call a Tuscan Dial. It's a blue dial with a nice hand-carved, hand-frosted kind of finish. And it's in a platinum case, so I think there must be There must be a maximum of 20 to 25 pieces of these. I don't know the exact number, but these are quite unusual. And so I was really fortunate to be able to find this piece, full box and papers with the original winder and in immaculate condition. Even the winder. So this is quite cool.
And here you have a different version, right?
Yes. So this is another. I would say, at first glance, one wouldn't even guess that this is an Audemars because it's not in the typical AP styling. You've got very rich guilloche and Breguet numerals, which I think most would associate more towards, I don't know, Roger Smith, Breguet, or maybe even Patek. You know, so I found this piece to be extremely interesting. We'll take a look.
Beautiful, yeah, of course. And you always probably takes a lot of time to find these rare pieces because there's no channel else. I see them, honestly. And I'm always excited to see, you know, what your next post gonna be. Because I know I'll see a watch I didn't even know exists, basically.
These watches are really undervalued for what they is, you know, but I think there are a few reasons I think that's the case. Firstly, it's 36 millimeters, so that's not a very popular size right now because we're just coming out of a phase. I mean, just 5 years ago, people were crazy about Panerais, offshores, Hublots, Richard Milles. So this 36 millimeter size, even though it's always been an evergreen men's size, it's just gone out of fashion for the past few years. And I think eventually this size will come back again. And the best part is it's always going to be relevant. It's not affected by trends. It's not too big. It's not too colorful. I find these to be really romantic and charming.
Yeah.
And I love these. And also, I think another reason why these watches are still considered quite undervalued because they were produced mainly during the 80s and the 90s, which you don't really hear people talking about this period of watches. People are talking about 60s, 70s, but eventually, of course, we're gonna get more acquainted and more attracted towards 80s designs, like this one here. Talking about design,
beautiful, yeah.
This is insane. I think the coolest part of this is the way they cut the sapphire crystal and then to fit on the case. And then also to ensure that there's some kind of moisture resistance, you know. So this is what they call the clover, a 4-leaf clover, obviously by the shape of the dial and the way it's done. So altogether, I think 123 pieces of these were made, 82 pieces in yellow gold.
What I lately also saw on your page is what draw a lot of attention from me is this boy right here.
Okay.
What's the story behind this guy? This is what I think is very rare, but you can tell me more about it for sure.
From your understanding of AP, what do you think is the complication they produce the most? Just from your understanding.
Let's say chronograph.
Okay.
Maybe tourbillons, but later on.
Okay.
But usually, for me, like in the vintage era, I think they were known for chronographs and perpetuals.
Okay. That's very cool because AP makes a lot of chronographs today, right? The Royal Oak offshores, all of them mainly come with chronograph complications. And the one step up from a time-only Royal Oak is the Royal Oak chrono.
Yeah.
So today, AP makes a lot of chronographs, but back then, that wasn't the case. So from the inception of the company all the way till 1969, AP actually only produced 307 wristwatch chronographs. That's quite shocking to know, right? For the entire history, they've only made 307 pieces. So the chronographs are extremely rare, and you don't see them show up at all. But when you see them show up, they're gone immediately, or they're transacted even below, like under the market's radar, because they don't show up, not even in auctions, hardly ever. So. Chronographs were extremely hard to make back then because there were so many parts that had to be made. Every part, especially for a top brand like Audemars, every part has to be immaculately finished. So not many of those were made. I think Patek made easily 10 times that amount, which could be a double-edged sword for AP because every piece is so rare, but then again, there are so little pieces that the market doesn't even know they exist.
Or how do you even find out
exactly
which one's which, or when did it exist, or did it exist? Or
exactly, And most of them were unique in some form because either different index, different case sizes, different materials, different dials, different hands. All of them are special in their own way. So that's all the way until 1969, 307 pieces. 70s, no, they didn't make any chronographs in the 70s. So in the early 80s, they made a final batch of 91 chronographs, if I'm not mistaken, 2 references, and this is a second reference. So for the second batch of manual winding chronographs, if I'm not mistaken, only 10 of them were in pink gold. There was one platinum piece unique, but I mean that's just impossible to find. And what's super cool is these are all immaculately skeletonized and engraved. You have to check out the case back view for
this. For that era, this is incredible.
This is
like
insane.
how they made it.
Especially for the amount of parts, to skeletonize everything and to engrave every part. Look at the case
tools
back.
from the past, right? Not nowadays. No, it's just beautiful. And this one also has a bigger balance wheel, right? It seems a bit wider.
Yeah, the balance it's a massive balance. It takes up literally half the watch. And then the other half you see your barrel.
That's beautiful. The finishing, the skeletonization, the engraving, I mean, oof. There's nothing to say but just to smile at it, basically.
And it's got a lot of depth for this.
And again, something people that want to get the Royal Oak just don't think about, right? That for the same money, if you can find this, because it's super rare, they could basically get a beautiful piece like this, which is more significant than the Royal Oak, if you think about it.
I think it's still possible to find one in maybe yellow gold because they produced a bit more. For pink gold, there's only 10. I know a gentleman with 2, so there's actually only 7 more out there. So this one I picked up from a friend in Singapore.
Beautiful.
Love this piece.
Congrats,
Thank you. Yeah, I got this recently.
So then we have, let's say, some APs people might recognize even from the camera. But what's this? What's special about this shape? Because usually it's people recognize the Royal Oak as the octagonal shaped bezel and the case.
Yeah.
But you have a, let's say, more unusual version here, which is rare as well, right?
Yeah. So this is the reference 6005. This reference was released in 1978. I don't think they were produced for more than 3 or 4 years. I've seen 3 sizes altogether: small, medium, and large.
Which one's this?
This one's the large one, which is the hardest to find.
Yeah.
This size was the hardest to find, and because of when it was made, the trend at that point in time was two-tone watches. So most of them were in bicolor.
Yeah, I've seen them around, but I don't see this.
Yes, the ones in bicolors are more common. So it took me a long time to find one in full steel. So what I really
and in
love,
this size, right?
Yeah, and in this size, yeah. So what I really love about this is it's got the signature Royal Oak bracelet. So when you have it on the wrist, at this point, you don't really see anything special, and then
you think you know what it is.
Yeah, you think you know what it is, and then when you get to here, your jaw drops.
Yeah.
So I think this is a super cool piece. I love this, and a lot of people say they wish that there wasn't the quartz word on the dial, but I think this is super important because when this watch was released, just like many of the quartz watches during that time, the brands were looking for something that's more aggressively shaped, something more avant-garde, something that looks a bit more futuristic, like you can see in the Rolex Oyster Quartz. Yeah. That's another example of a watch that altered basically the styling of the traditional Oyster case to a more futuristic avant-garde design. And this, I think, was AP's attempt at doing that. So the fact that it's quartz is reflective of that spirit that led to its creation. And also quartz watches were not cheap back then. You know, they were state of the art. They were the new technology. They were extremely expensive. So I managed to collect the ads for these from 1978 as well. Yeah, with the original price listed on the ad, and they weren't cheap. These were expensive watches. I love the fact that it has the quartz words on the quartz signature on the dial. Yeah,
because I mean, also, even if they use, let's say, a quartz movement, which they had to develop in-house, because I'm sure they didn't want to go to the Japanese for that, the craftsmanship of the bracelet, the hands, the dial and the indexes and just everything is still made to the highest level of the Royal Oak.
Exactly, yeah.
So the movement plays really like let's say a smaller part of the cost that it takes for this watch. That's beautiful. I saw it on your page as well. I saw you have a his and hers as well.
Yes.
Beautiful. Yes. It's a good combination to have.
And nice. Another cool thing about this is the crown doesn't work like a traditional piece. So when you pull out the crown and when you turn the crown, only the hour head moves. So this is extremely convenient because this is for changing of time zones. Okay. It's super cool. And to change the minute, can you see there's a little button over there? Yeah. So you press it down with a toothpick or something. Okay. And then the minute runs, and then when it's time, you let it go. Gotcha. So that's how you set the minutes.
Wow. Yeah, didn't know that. Yeah. Pretty cool. So pretty cool technology as well in a what looks like a mechanical watch, basically.
And let's not forget, this is what, 40 over years ago, right?
Yeah. It was the beginning of it.
So while we're on Royal Oak, I think this I like this a lot as well. It's a full silver monochrome.
Never seen as well.
Monochrome Royal Oak with a very interesting logo on the dial. So
what is the logo?
It's the logo of this vintage car race in Belgium called the National Classic Tour. And they only made 20 pieces of these.
Well, it's super cool because it's nothing, like a very small amount if you think about AP Royal Oaks these days, basically.
Exactly, yeah. So they only make 20 pieces, and I was lucky enough to find 2 of these. Wow. So one for me and one for the girlfriend.
So you guys both collect watches as well, right?
Yes, and we try to find watches that we can pair together.
Yeah, exactly.
As much as possible.
Nothing better than that,
So this is the first edition of the National Classic Tour. I think it was 2005. So not exactly a vintage piece. But you know, I just like quirky, unusual designs.
Yeah, the size is pretty good as well, right? And for the size, the crown is pretty big. Like it's nice to use. I love your stuff, man. You just find the watches people don't even know exist. I mean, that's why I love to follow your channel and just I admire how I always ask you, where the hell did you find this watch? Because probably AP sometimes doesn't even know, or they forget what existed or what not.
So this is also another very special find. Yeah. This line of watch is called the Star Wheel. AP released it in 1991, 1992. It's inspired by this wandering hours kind of time display. So basically you have the hours represented on the sapphire disc over here, and it wanders over the dial with the arrow pointing to what minutes it is. Yeah. So in this case, let's play around with it. Can you see how the discs turn?
They turn around.
Yeah. And so I think this display format first came out in the 17th century for a night clock made for the Pope. Yeah. And AP brought this display into the 20th century with the Star Wheel, and I think it went on to inspire many other brands to do something in this format, like Uverk, for example. Yes. You've got Gorilla watches. I think even Moser did one last year, was it?
Arnold & Son
has one as well. Yeah. So this is basically they're all based on the same rotating satellites concept. And this is most notable because this is the first one to actually bring it to the mainstream, and it's in a very classical and elegant design.
Yeah, very wearable.
This example over here is a piece unique.
Wow.
The lower half of the dial is Tiger Eye, and the top half is Mother of Pearl.
Wow. It's a very special combination.
Exactly.
But works really well together.
Yeah. And if you notice, the minutes display for this are broken into 15-minute chapters, whereas all the other production models are broken into 5-minute chapters.
Wow.
So the only numerals here you see are 0, 15, 30, 45, and 60, right? So for the regular production ones, there are 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on. So this has a cleaner, less busy, less cluttered dial. And also the middle, it's a guilloche on pink gold.
Guilloche, Wow. Yeah. Just, so much attention to detail, back in the days as well.
If you look closely, even the Audemars signature is on Mother of Pearl.
Yes, I see that at 6 o'clock. Wow. And the back, you can also see it's nice open. I'm surprised it's open.
Well, it's the 90s, so that's when AP started to open up the case backs.
Wow. With the Côte de Genève decoration on the rotor and on the movement itself. Just a beautiful example.
So this piece was first brought to my attention by a friend from the club, and I was blown away. I told him, if you're not taking it, I'll have it. Yeah. He's like, it's yours. So I booked a flight to Taiwan, and I was there for 4 hours.
Max.
I picked up the watch and I came back straight away. I've never been to Taiwan before. It was my first time there. And it was all for just this watch. I was tired. I hardly slept. It was an adventure for this one.
Amazing. I mean, we really see. I like how you collect APs, but not your typical, let's say, not boring Royal Oaks, but just stuff you see all the time. Yeah. It's refreshing to know and see these watches in person, because it opens new horizons. And like you said at the beginning. It shows you the AP wasn't and is not all about the Royal Oak.
Yeah, not at all.
There's much more to it,
Not at all.
So AP is one passion you have, but you also like, let's say, other brands, of course, because you're a watch expert in many levels. Yeah. What is this guy right here? Because again, something I've never seen before you posting it. So
this is from another brand that I admire greatly. It's from Lange.
And it's not Swiss, huh?
Yeah, it's not Swiss. This is a German brand, and of course Lange, they're very well known for their movement finishing, and the movement architecture. So for this, what I really like is that it's a very classical size of 36 millimeters. It's based on the 1815, which you can tell by Arabic numerals. But this is it's a watch that's even unknown to many of the die-hard Lange collectors out there. Yeah. So this was a small run of limited edition watches, just 10 pieces, made for Düsseldorf retailer HD Blume. So which is why you've got the Roman numerals at 9 o'clock, which says 47, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 47 in Roman numerals, because the company was founded in 1947, and this watch was launched in 1997 for the 50th anniversary of HD Blume. Yeah. So you've got Blume signature on the right side. So it's kind of like a think of it like a Tiffany Patek.
Yeah, like a double-signed, like the double-signed watch, right?
Which in this case, the Tiffany signature is like 10 times the Patek size, which I'm sure Lange would never do again today. Yeah. So this is actually the first limited edition that Lange ever put out, and it predates what most Lange academics knew to be the first limited edition Lange, which was the Lange 1A from 1998.
Yeah.
But because it's such a small run and only sold to HD Bloomer's VIPs, it went under the radar and not many people knew about this.
It's only 10 pieces. Like,
only 10 pieces. So this piece over here, you can see the signature, the numbering on is engraved on the movement, not on the case back. Yeah, so it's right here. Can you see that?
I see. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So this is number 7 out of 10. Wow. Yeah. Beautiful movement.
So this was found in a little shop in Japan, Nagoya. Wow. Just sitting there for 2 years.
Another country and city to go to for your rare pieces. Yeah. Wow. I mean, Lange's finishing is, in my opinion, they do a better job than Patek. You know, comments, hate comments welcome. Back in the day, they were also like crushing it. I mean, the way they finished the movements with the German silver as well, right? Just remarkable. The blued screws, I mean,
the color. I think the main thing about the German watchmaking is just the color. You've got the blued screws, you've got your chatons, you've got the rubies,
and the dial is beautifully made as well. The blued hands. And like you mentioned today, Lange would never put the retailer's name at such a bigger scale.
Not a chance.
You barely see the Lange, Lange & Söhne.
They're not a very playful brand. So this is something they probably wouldn't be messing around today. Gorgeous. And you can, if you compare the architecture between Swiss watchmaking and German, you can see it's so different. Yeah. Really, really different.
The Germans are known for the 3/4 main plate, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's not something Swiss often do, really. No. Right.
So when I first saw this, I didn't know what I was looking at, obviously. I knew it was something special. So I had to check with a few close friends of mine, Lange experts. I had to check with Lange themselves in order to make sure that what I'm looking at is, in order for me to fully understand the story behind this watch. And it helps that it came with box and papers as well. So with the original HD Bloomer stamp, the date,
full set.
Yeah, full set.
Beautiful. So what many, let's say, also people in Singapore know you for is, and also worldwide, because your reach is very big on social media, is the founder of Singapore Watch Club. Tell us something about that and what is, I see a few pieces here which indicate, I know what these are because I follow you, we know each other since a very long time. We first met in Dubai, where I wanted to see your Vianney and manufacturing now. I will never forget that. I think you were talking to Philippe Dufour, if I'm mistaken. So what is, let's say, this model, and what is Singapore Watch Club to you, and why did you start it?
Singapore Watch Club was founded, well, it's largely modeled after Dubai Watch Club, which is one of the very few localized Instagram, social media communities that was created. So when I first started my watch journey, I was on forums, I was meeting with people, and then after that, Instagram came along. And then that's when people that's the new form of where people absorbed knowledge and learn about other people's opinions and thoughts and likings and what they felt about watches. So that's when I started to meet some friends on Instagram all over the world. I've become close friends with collectors in Philippines, Indonesia, Dubai, Italy, you name it, everywhere, every corner of the world there's a watch collector that's super passionate, And so once I started meeting these people, I realized that, hey, this is really what I want to do. I want to learn from these people. I want to find out what makes them tick. I want to look at their collection. I want them to tell me stories about how they found their watches. Basically what we're doing now. Yes. And I thought, you know what, the best way is to start a community. And at the end of the day, what the Singapore Watch Club really wants to do is we want to bring together people that loves watches, and we want to help get the word out there. We want to make it easier, anything we can, to make it easier for new people to start liking watches.
And to understand it and get knowledge.
Exactly, because when I meet new people that are not very well versed in watches, and they know that I have a deeper understanding of watches, I sense they get a bit nervous. They're like, oh, I don't really know much about watches, but I like this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't care how much you know. I care that you like this.
Exactly.
I want to hear about why you like this.
Yeah.
And I think everyone should be able to talk about watches.
Yeah.
Without feeling like they need a collection to have an opinion. You don't.
Or a higher price point or something.
Yeah, you don't. You can like any watches. You can like a Seiko, and I want to hear about why you like the Seiko. You can like Timex. You can like $1 million Patek. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
And which is why if you come to our get-togethers, which you did last Saturday, when you come to our get-togethers, you will realize that you can see Patek Grand Comp beside a limited edition Swatch. I don't think you see that mix anywhere else because in Singapore.
And everything in between, huh?
Yes, everything in between.
All the brands, prices, materials, complications.
Exactly. So we just really want to bring forth this passion for watches that more people can enjoy, more people can find it easier to jump onto this discipline of I don't know, would you call it an art? Would you call it a science? I don't know. I think it's a perfect balance of both.
Yeah.
So I think more people should develop their understanding for watches because at the end of the day, these are one of the very few items that we can proudly pass down to our children, to our descendants. And these are very sentimental items because you often hear people that, I've had this watch for a long time, I'll never sell this. My dad gave this to me before he passed on. And that is something that, it will
it's
never...
the best stories.
Yeah. Your dad wore it his whole life and now you're wearing it your whole life. And then your son, hopefully your son or daughter will as well. And it's something that really encapsulates someone's legacy, I think. So that's what the Singapore Watch Club is about. We've been around for about 4 years now. In fact, we just celebrated our 4th anniversary last week.
Yeah, that's why I'm here as well.
Yeah. So this piece over here, it's the start of our Singapore Watch Club collaboration pieces for our anniversary. So we will do a maximum of 1 watch a year. It will never be more than that. And it will always, it's a long planning process, The conceptualization starts maybe about a year or 2 before the launch. And
because you don't just put a different color on it.
No.
You completely designed a new watch basically with the brand itself.
Exactly. So with every project, what we try to do is we want to shine a light on the heritage and expertise of the brand that we picked. So this is for the 2nd anniversary. So this one we did it with Ulysse Nardin. And Ulysse Nardin, I think everyone knows, they've got an anchor for a logo, right? So the history is very, very well anchored into marine chronometers.
Yes, exactly.
So we knew that that's the design that we had to base the watch on. So they launched this line of watches called the Classico with a Gonfa enamel dial, I think 2 or 3 years ago. And we loved it because Ulysse managed to acquire this dial maker called Donze, which is basically one of the most prolific enamel dial makers. They produce for so many brands.
The big names,
I'm pretty sure even Patek. I'm pretty sure they produce for Lang Ferrier. For Montblanc, for Langenhain. Just most of the brands that you can think of, if they make enamel dials, likely from Donze.
And they also do cloisonné enamel, which is the next level, right? And they're down the street of Ulysse, in Le Locle, Switzerland.
So we knew we wanted to pay tribute to UN's marine chronometer heritage. We knew we wanted to do something with enamel dials. So we had to test UN with the ultimate test, which is make us a black enamel dial. So now they have one in a production model, but when we did this, Donze has never made a black enamel dial before. Never in the history. So this is the first black enamel dial they made.
It came out beautiful.
So the first thing we did was black enamel. Second, we had to pay tribute to the older marine chronometers of UN. So the canvas that we started with had leaf hands. We had them swapped out for spade and whip hands to be more in line with UN's previous styling. And then if you see there's kind of a red 12 there going on. So that's also to pay tribute to a watchmaking heritage, which is something that brought forward from pocket watches, because when you take it out from your pocket, immediately you know which way is up.
Which way is up,
with the red 12. So, but we only made the number 2 red, so not the 10. This is because it's the 2nd anniversary, so we paid tribute to that with the red 2, and also when you turn it to the sides, that's the color of the Singapore flag. You see, red and white. So that's the reason behind.
It's really cool. I didn't know the last part.
That's the reason behind that little touch. And the original piece, there was a date at 6 o'clock. So we took that out because it was a break in the enamel, and we thought, we wanted the enamel to be a full
clean.
piece. So we took away the date window and replaced it with a little tiny signature, like once again like a double sign piece, and it just subtly says SWC.
Wow.
So on the back you will see
a beautiful strap as well. Huh?
Yeah, thanks. So on the back you see with the Singapore Watch Club logo. And another thing that's special is the crown is in black rather than the usual blue.
Huh?
Yeah. And this piece over here is the prototype number 0 out of 20.
Wow. I mean, well done. Huh? This is for the first collaboration. This is a great brand to work with.
I mean,
great model.
They've got a great history.
Yeah.
One of the really strong brands in throughout the Swiss watchmaking history.
Yeah, very unique. Like I love the freak watch since I knew what a watch is. I'm like, I need a freak in my life. Yeah. At one point. Yeah. And I always love the classic pieces as well.
Yeah. And we kept it to a very small production, just 20.
20 pieces, yeah. So this was the first edition.
Yep.
What I see on this table and what I also am lucky enough to have on my wrist, thank you for making it happen, is the latest Singapore Watch Club edition, which many people were very excited about, and when it launched, I think the demand and the attention it got was well deserved and just huge. Can you please, from the expert itself and the creator of this watch, walk us through it?
So the Singapore Watch Club editions, it's always going to be surprising. It's always going to keep you on your toes. You never know what the next one's going to be. So the first one we did something that's very classical. So we decided to push the boundaries a bit more on this one. So for the second piece, we decided to go with a brand that I think most would find a bit controversial to say the least, right? Yeah. So Hublot, I think, did a fantastic job on this. And the concept behind the watch is because Hublot is all about the art of fusion. So we wanted to take that fusion to the next level. They've been experimenting with materials for a long time. They did the first watch to put rubber on a precious metal piece. Yes. That's the invention, I think, from the 80s must be. So if you think about it, without that, would there be an Aquanaut? Yeah. Would there be many of the recognizable watches offshores? Yeah. Many of the recognizable watches that you see today were based on that first fusion of material. And so we wanted to take the material fusion one step further by integrating in a cultural fusion as well. We thought the best way to do it was to bring on a local artist, in this case Clarence Wee, local calligrapher. We decided to bring him on to perform the numerals in Chinese calligraphy. Yeah. So rather than just adopting a certain pre-made font and printing it on the dial, we had Clarence with full body motion, like in the launch video if you saw it, with full body motion execute these beautiful Chinese calligraphy numerals and then shrink them down to the size of a tiny index. And this is to really bring forth the idea that people tend to forget how much hard work goes into something so small, like calligraphy in this case, or typography, which is something that Clarence wanted to show a stark contrast in terms of size. And we decided to do a linen dial, which, I mean, once again, I said before that we have to test whichever brand we're working with. Yeah. So in this case, Hublot is all about material innovation, right? We had to test them. Yeah. Can you do a linen dial? Yeah, something that they never did before. Yeah, something that they've never done before. Yeah. So the result, I think, is really astounding, because when you look at the watch closely, you see so much depth. The numerals are applied and they cast such a deep shadow onto the linen dial. They look like they're floating, which is, I think, something that you really have to see in person to appreciate. We removed the date that was at number 3 so that we can have a full-sized calligraphy rather than, like in this case, this is also this is a Dubai edition with Arabic numerals, but can you see the dates at number 3? So number 3 is way smaller. It's a bit smaller, so we didn't really want that. So we had the date completely removed. The movements were modified to remove that date function, and we have a full-size number 3. And also, unlike most other classic fusions, Can you see this ring over here? That one's in composite, right? So this one we had it done in full pink gold.
Full pink gold.
Yeah, contrasting against avant-garde ceramic case. So this is again material fusion. You have very traditional precious metal placed together with avant-garde scratch-resistant ceramic.
Yeah.
So it's really unbelievable, and I'm really grateful for everyone that was a part of this project. You know, a lot of members chimed in on the idea that ended up in this final design, and also the creative team that put together the launch video, Clarence that did the calligraphy, the hourglass that really supported the project. Everything came together perfectly for this to happen, and I'm humbled that it's so well received by the online community, and I congratulate you for having one.
Thank you. I'm very happy with mine. That's why I also came to Singapore to meet also the guys in the Singapore Watch Club and fellow watch brothers, as we call it in our like small little world, as geeky as we are. Yeah. It's for me, my love for Asian culture as well. This was a perfect fit, and I always wanted a Hublot. This is in fact my first Hublot, and I think I couldn't have a better start than this. And again, like you say, the watches you value the most are not the ones who you pay the most money for, or is the most rarest one, but the one that has a significant meaning to you and a bond to either like a person or an event or or a country.
Exactly.
For me, in this case, this watch is everything. You know, Singapore, my love for this city. I love coming here. I love seeing you guys. You're a close friend of mine. So this is, like we say, like a brotherhood, basically. It's not even a watch at this point, you know. It's like when you look at this, you remember, you know, the guys, the time you ate, you know, satay in Singapore. You know, it's not even an object, you know. It's more emotional. And
I think that's the whole point of the whole watch industry is driven by emotions, without a doubt.
Yes.
And if you think about it, the watches that mean the most are always the ones with the richest story, not the one with the highest resale value.
Yes.
Or not the one that's most hyped up on Instagram. It's always the one that has the closest story to your heart, you know?
100% agree.
So when I designed that piece, it was meant to be kind of like a second installment to this piece, which I personally love a lot. Prior to that piece, this was my favorite Hublot. And I know a lot of people think that Hublot watches don't hold resale value. I paid a high premium for this piece. Yeah. I must have paid about 4 times retail for this. This is a 100-piece limited edition made by Siddiqui for the Dubai market. And they call it the vision, I think, was something to do with developing Dubai into a world-class metropolis, if I'm not mistaken. So this features this Hindu-Arabic numerals, which I'm learning to read now. Yeah. It's not so hard to read the index, but the date you need to compare it on. This is okay. This is 2. This is 9. Okay, 29. So it's something that takes a bit of learning.
Worst case, to look at the phone again to make it to be sure what time it is and what date.
It's a very Instagram watch because when it first came out, I remember it was
100%.
I remember very vividly. Anish of Watch Anish posted this on his Instagram, and next day all of them were gone.
Sold out.
And many of my friends had one. Santa Laura had one. Yeah. My close friends from Indonesia had one. My close friend from Nigeria had one.
Dubai Watch Club.
Yeah, Adol had one from Dubai Watch Club. So it was something that I really admired, but I could never get, you know. So the moment, and you know the Arabs, they never sell anything. Yes. So the moment one showed up on the market, finally, I had to pay whatever the asking was.
So the last watch we have here, again, you always surprise me and the audience, of course, with what we see here. Feels very light. Probably most of the people don't know this exists. So I'm just gonna say, like, well, what is it?
What's the first thing you notice about this?
So the first thing I notice is, okay, it's super light. Yeah. And the first thing that pops in my what I see is that it says not for sale. Yeah. So what is this?
So this piece is what they call the Hublot Atelier piece.
Okay.
So it's the watch you get when you send in when a VIP sends in a high-end Hublot piece, if I'm not mistaken, above 30,000 US for service, and then they will loan this out as a service piece to tide you through while your watch is in service. So like many of the service watches, I mean, I think Lange did one before, right? They had a steel 1815 that they loaned out to as a service watch, and some of them just never came back.
Yeah.
Some of them just never came back. So this is one of those pieces that never made it back.
Wow.
I finally found it from a friend in the US. And I knew immediately. Of course, I paid a stupid amount of money for this. But it's a plastic watch, quartz. So it's basically a glorified swatch.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have a deploying buckle. It's one of the.
They didn't bother.
It's the only Hublot that's on a Tang buckle. So I think this is super cool. It's a minimalist design. You've got nothing on the dial apart from the Hublot branding and the text that says "not for sale."
Yeah, which is awesome.
Which is awesome. And what's most ironic is when I post this on Instagram, the comments I get and the messages I get, it's always how much.
Yeah, and you like to read the dial.
Yeah, read the dial, read the caption, it says not for
ask me
sale.
again, maybe.
And I'm pretty sure in the comments we're gonna get how much as well.
Yeah. How much is one of those? It's like, if you can find them, be sure to pay a high premium for it.
Yeah, most of these watches here, I don't even know how you would assign market prices to them.
Yeah.
How much what's the market price for this? I mean,
maybe auction, but even that would be like, you can't gauge it,
how do you compare?
right?
Yeah, how do you compare? What about this?
Or where do you start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times, you know, it's really just worth how much it's worth to you emotionally. And this, to me, I've been looking for this high and low for such a long time. And I actually found two pieces.
Yeah.
And the second piece, I gave it to a close friend of mine, because it was his first watch, and he also bought one of the second SWC limited edition pieces. So while waiting for that, he was really excited for it. So when I found the second piece, I told him, "You can have this one."
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Again, it's something you just don't see this stuff.
I do wear this, you know. I actually do wear this, but I'm super careful with this because it's fully made of composite. So if you strike it against anything, you can't polish it, you can't do anything. And you can't go to Hublot and say, "I want to replace the case."
Probably keep it.
They're like, "You're not supposed to have this."
Or maybe they'll give you a replacement watch again.
Hopefully, while this is in service.
Just keep both of them later. No, man, listen, Tom, thank you for having us in your home.
Thank you.
You know, showing my audience and me as well the watches you collect. It's always a pleasure to see you, and I'm always on my toes, like excited to see what you're gonna buy next, post next. You know, yeah. I mean, all the best in the future. I hope you find all the crazy watches you didn't know exist.
Yeah.
And yes, thank you, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.